is pretty much a drug that people believe is going to lead to the use of harder drugs. So, for example, marijuana, tobacco, and alcohol are gateway drugs that would lead to harder drugs such as cocaine or heroin.
These are drugs that are commonly available and
Yes.
really sometimes don't have the stigma attached to them that
Right.
some of the harder drugs do.
Yes. They're more readily available in the community. Young people can get it because it is at home alcohol. It's at home sometimes, so they can easily get that. Cigarettes are left around sometimes if a parent or a family member are using it. It's something that's just a lot more readily available to.
And something that when an adult uses is not illegal.
Yes.
So a child
Exactly.
seeing it,
Yes.
seeing an adult use it can oftentimes lead to them feeling having a feeling that it's okay to use.
Exactly. Yes. They will see people doing it, and oftentimes will have the youth mimicking what they're seeing.
Now, you mentioned prescription drugs
Yes.
and the possibility that or the new classification of prescription drugs being a gateway drug.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that?
Well, studies recently have been showing that prescription drugs have been considered a gateway drug to the more hardcore injectable drugs, again, such as heroin. Prescription drugs are becoming such a problem because they are a lot more readily available at home. Parents who are prescribed medications will leave them in their medicine cabinets, and kids will have access to them, and they'll start using them. Sometimes kids themselves are prescribed medications that they are now giving to other kids for either money or just to give it to them.
And I can say that in our experience, we're finding that children or young adults that are coming across the legal system that are addicted to the hardcore drugs like heroin, the story seems to be the same, that they started on the prescription medication, the medication that they found in their parents' medicine cabinet, the unused pain meds. They started on that. They couldn't sustain, or they became addicted and then couldn't sustain the supply of pills because they couldn't get a legitimate prescription, or the cost was cost prohibitive, and they migrate to heroin, which is much cheaper. I also think it's very important to point out when we talk about heroin, people have the image that it's an injectable drug and that's all it is. That's the end stage heroin user. People get into heroin today simply they can use it, they crush it up, they can snort it, they can put it into a cigarette or other tobacco. Only after a prolonged period of use do the users progress to injecting heroin. So I think that's important that we point that out. I also, what are some of the prescription meds that are being abused and are leading young adults down that dangerous path?
Well, we're seeing a lot of, with kids who are prescribed medication, there's Ritalin, there's abuse of Ritalin, there's abuse of Xanax, Vicodin, Oxycontin. Those are the pain medications that are being prescribed to people that are being seen.
All right. Now that we know some of the gateway drugs, how might a parent determine whether or not his or her child is at risk?
Well, there are actually a number of factors for people to take into consideration of how your child might be at risk. A parent needs to look at their own child. Is their child, if they have mental health issues, or if what their attitude is towards drugs. If they feel that it's not a big deal to use drugs, then they very well could be at risk for trying it, using it. Peer pressure, big thing. Peer pressure, kids today, their biggest thing is making sure that they fit in, that, they want to hang out with their friends, and if they're hanging out with friends that are doing it, they might very well be pressured into using drugs.
You bring up friends, Pam, and I think that's an excellent point. I think parents need to know who their child's friends are, and
Yes.
especially be vigilant when they see a pattern where maybe their child is changing friends, or they're hanging out with people they don't know.
Yes.
It's very important to know who your children are hanging out with.
Yes.
And one of the red flags that should pop up would be when your child is making excuses or justifying their new friend, but not giving you a lot of information about who they are. I think parents have to really trust their instincts.
Yes, most definitely. And parents need to have these conversations with their kids, talking to them and asking those questions. Because I know a lot of times parents don't want to ask the questions
Right.
and talk to them, but they have to be very vigilant, observant of what their kids are doing.
And also, I think parents have to walk a fine line. They have to toe the line between being a friend. Parents should not be friends to their children. They have to be parents first. That's not to say they can't be friendly, but also they have to be careful not to talk down to their children. They can't ostracize them or insult them. We've seen it. We've seen parents talking inappropriately to children, and that's just going to drive them away and towards other outlets. So it's a difficult job being a parent, especially today with all the vices and ills that are out there.
Yes, couldn't agree more. Some other things just also to look for in regards to some risks, obviously family history. If there is a history within the family, that's going to play a role.
Good point.
School issues, if a child is struggling in school, maybe they're being bullied. Bullying is a big thing right now with the schools. They're very vigilant.
It's very in.
They try to combat bullying, but if a child is being bullied, it could lead to them using drugs. And community issues. If the community's attitude towards drugs is one where it's not a big deal to do, that could also be a risk factor for youth getting involved in drugs.
Yeah, and you bring up peer pressure, and I think parents, adults, they succumb to peer pressure as well sometimes. We talk about the warning signs and what to look out for. What about when you see the warning signs? We found that parents sometimes go into a state of denial at that point, and they don't want to recognize what's right in front of them. And a lot of times that's in my experiences, is due to the fact that the parent is afraid of what their friends might think about them and their family. I think parents need to know that if it's right in front of you,
And that's how you operate, isn't it?
and react accordingly. There's a lot of support in the community for people who are going through addiction. There's
Popularity
a lot of support
contest.
for families of people who are going through addiction, and there's a lot of people.
That's why people
there's more people
undermine
than
and
you
gossip,
realize
because they think that
that
even
have the very
when they
same
make
problem.
stuff
So
up,
the network is out there, and you have to react.
it's an
because if
assault.
you do not react, it could be too late.
Yes. Well, in regards to trying to
goes
prevent,
over their
I said
heads.
this
The
about
policies
making sure
had
that you're
something.
talking to your children, having that open dialogue, establishing clear rules, knowing
really
who
just
their
don't
friends
care.
are,
It's just really-
asking those hard questions, and being a good role model. Because kids are going to observe what you do as a parent, and they will mimic what they see. So that's some steps on how to help prevent, your child possibly getting involved in drugs.
What are some of the signs to look for? How do you know?
Some of the signs to look for, obviously, are change in behavior. If your child is